Two of the real-life mums who inspired the drama, Tracy and Maggie, join us now, alongside Jodie Whittaker, who plays fellow mum Susan in the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, ladies. Thank you. We watched the whole thing, didn't we? We had Robert Carlyle was on the show. And we talked about it, and I was saying to you, I found the first episode especially so difficult to watch, as a mum myself. Can you take us back to the time when, before you knew anything had really affected you, what was it like at that time, and what do you remember about the dust?
Obviously, I worked in Corby on the industrial estate.
Yeah.
I travelled to work every day, 6 days a week. And we had a white car at the time. Yeah. And every night when I got home, I had to wash it because it was so bad. And it was a thick red dust. And obviously, when there was a little bit of wind, it was like a sandstorm that was swept up. Obviously, on the days that it was wet, the roads were just like a potter's wheel of red sludge. Yeah. But obviously, being in Corby and there was works going on, we just all put it down to it being normal mud. And obviously, when it was wet, and when it was dry and there's a bit of dust, it would, you know, the wind, it would throw the dust up. But it was so bad that on days we couldn't even have the windows open at work.
Really?
And you'd put your coffee cup down, put your sandwiches down, go away from your desk for 2 minutes, come back, pick them up, and your desk was covered, you know. And
anybody questioning whether this was all right?
We did question it, but because there was a lot of work going on and it was a muddy area that they was... You just took it. It was simple mud. Nobody ever said, hang on a minute, this dust could be toxic. You know, so you drink it, you'd eat it. And
it was also after they closed the steelworks as well. So I think, like for instance, your husband, he was one of the people who were driving the trucks. Did he ever suspect that there was anything at all?
No, it was just the norm. You know, he came home from work, you know, his clothes were caked in mud. And, you know, I used to just whack them off the wall because it was like, oh, I can't put this in the washing machine because there is just so much. And to us, it was just mud from the work site.
There's a scene at the start, isn't there, Maggie, where your character, or you, essentially take your husband's clothes and you hang them on the washing line and you're beating them with an old carpet.
Tennis
racket, isn't it? And it's an interesting scene because we're sitting there and watching it thinking, well, and we know what that is, but that was just normal life for all of you. You just got on with it.
Yeah, because obviously if we did know what it was, there would be no way I would have done that, you know, So
I think one of the things that for all of you, the tragedy was that these children were then born. You tragically lost Shelby Ann, of course. She didn't survive. Your son was born with limb differences. The character Jodie that you play, Susan, her son as well was born with limb differences. I can't imagine how difficult that was when that happens for you, and there's no suspicion at the time that there were external factors that was making that the case?
Nothing at all. We didn't know anything about it. It was only when we saw something a few years later on the news report about the children with deformities, and they mentioned toxic waste, that it was like a jigsaw puzzle being chucked at me, because when we were at the John Radcliffe Hospital with Shelby, where she passed away, the consultants couldn't understand why she was so badly deformed inside under here. And they actually asked if we worked with toxic waste had come into contact. But obviously we didn't think we had. You know, neither of us worked with it. If we'd have known at the time that the dust we'd have said, well, hang on a minute, yes. But we didn't know. So it wasn't till then that the pieces started to come together for us and we realised.
Because I think also, Maggie, what happens is, when something like that happens, when you have a child, you feel, you go, well, what could I have done differently? Did I do something wrong? Was it this? Was it eating microwave food? Was it? You must have felt a massive sense of kind of guilt almost.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that's one thing that all the mums have said, you know, that was, you know, it's like, what has happened? What's went wrong? What have I done wrong? So it's...
So when you've asked all those questions of yourself, to suddenly see this and then a group of mums in the town where you are come together, what was that like, Maggie, when you all suddenly met the other mums and started to...
It was just overwhelming, really. I think the first time we seen it, the local paper, the Evening Telegraph, I kind of read it and I was kind of like, read it again, and I was thinking, I said to Derek, is this where you worked? Is this what you... And he was like, yeah, it was. And So it was like a, hang on a minute, this is way too coincidental that this has happened and, you know, you have worked moving this. You know, Derek had a work van. You know, I used to go in it sometimes. It was just, I lived in a world of mud, really. Well, what I thought was mud, but yeah, so it's
And
crazy.
when you all got together, was there a moment where you just felt almost a sense of relief in terms of there are other people in the same situation? And was there an immediate shorthand between you all and a need to actually, you know, find some form of justice, essentially?
I think once we knew that there was more of us and we weren't alone, and all of us knew that the council had done wrong and they were trying to cover it up, and they kept saying, oh, the mums are just doing this for money, they're gold diggers, they're trying to make a name for themselves. And it was question, you know, little things like that. And then we were like, nah, we're going to fight you all the way and we're going to prove that we are correct in that we've done the reclamation negligently. And that's what we done. So as a group, we were strong enough to do it, where I think if we'd have been individuals, it would have been different. So, and for me, it was always a case of, I felt quite alone because obviously Shelby's case was very different to the other 19 mums. But since Toxic Town's been out, I have got a great sense of comfort because the amount of people that have come forward that have got children and babies born at the same time with heart defects and internal organ defects. I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear.
From the region as well?
Same area.
Could well have been.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, you know, it's really sad that other children have been affected by this, but in a way it's comfort because I know now that Shelby wasn't the only one that had...
Although she wasn't included in the case, was she? Because your lawyer felt like you had more of a chance of winning if it was the children with limb differences rather than her internal organs.
That's right, yeah. And at the end of the day, they had to do what was best for the 18 children because it was what they were about. They need a better quality of life.
Jodie, it's the most remarkable story. They are the most remarkable group of mums as well. And when you get shown a script like that, I can't imagine what you begin to sort of contemplate before you think about even taking it.
I think it's one of those things where there isn't really a question of whether you're going to take it or not. You receive something, particularly, as we know from previous work as well, Jack, who you guys obviously have spent a lot of time with, the writer, he's such an extraordinary writer and he's so detailed and he's so respectful if it is material that has come from a real event. But you know that the level of work that has gone into that is beyond. So the opening scene that you read, you're in it, you want to do it. From my point of view, I'm instantly terrified because I think the opening scene is karaoke in a Glaswegian Corby accent. I was like,
and you've got
that
down. Carlisle there
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't?
So I wasn't in eye contact. I was eyeballing Robert at that point. But yeah, so there's things like that where you go, right, OK. But the instantly, something that, you know, has a lot of density within the actual facts of the case. That was that I thought was so cleverly done with the script because it has to be the story that has happened, but in that there is a lot of vocabulary and density to. It's an incredibly cerebral part of the story when you are when you know everyone's trying to work out why this has happened, but to make that. From rather than having, I would say, the most important part of it, which is the mums, be the outside of that. They are the beating heart of the story, and it's from their perspective. And I think that is the thing that is so important about this, is that it's from the point of view of the families.
It's why it's so compelling, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually the character that you play, Susan, is the real protagonist. I mean, when you say the beating heart, like she really is. And she's kind of, you know, she doesn't move in those circles. She doesn't move in, you know, in the world of law. But somehow she kind of rallies everybody.
Yeah, and I think...
gets everybody together.
I think this is the thing that's really brilliant, is that everybody, you know, and having chatted to Susan as well, I feel like I can say this without her being here, that she feels as if this is a representation of you guys in so much as it's not... These characters haven't been diluted. And what I loved about playing Susan was that there is a lioness
Yes.
with, and absolutely representative of you guys as well, is that you've got your cubs in your teeth. And no matter how much someone is trying to keep you in a cage, you're like pushing out of it. And I thought it was just so powerful that it didn't mean changing your personality to conform, because it's not only what your guilt is, and I'm only saying this from the actor's point of view, but there was, you know, the suggestion that your behaviour in pregnancy or your lifestyle choices have done this.
Yes.
And even at the last second of, you know, after years and years and people coming together, still to be the people potentially suggestion of blame is...
Yes.
Horrific.
Especially in those court scenes where they're trying to chip away.
Yeah.
They're trying to chip away at that confidence. Yeah. The sense of responsibility, though, must have been huge for you and for the rest of the cast.
Yeah, I think for the cast, and I think look, we've all seen as well, you know, we were shooting, I think, or maybe I can't think timing-wise, but we know what powerful television can do. Yeah. You know, last year it was such a huge event. So in that, you want to know that if you are representing a real-life case, that everybody feels represented. And I think
Mr. Bates in the post office, I think you're talking
about.
Yeah,
of course, the impact
of social dramas.
Of social drama, but that has a life beyond its event. And I think that what was so wonderful for us, because us guys met on set towards the end of filming, and it was like a very, you know, it was a big deal, and it had been long. We were waiting for this day, and we knew the date and everything. And it was on a day that I knew I spoke as well, so I was absolutely terrified that Susan was going to listen, and she didn't strike me as someone that'd keep her opinion. But I think it was very emotional for all of us. Yeah. It was, and that photo is beautiful because it is like we are all stood together, and we are side by side together, and we've played pretend, but you know
they lived it.
Yeah, you guys lived it.
Yeah.
Maggie, I wonder what you feel. I mean, it's interesting listening to Tracy say that actually people have contacted us since the draft's come out.
Yeah.
The impact of Toxic Town and what that might lead to.
Wow. You know, we've all been blown away with messages of support, and also, though, messages from people who are concerned that they may have been, you know, affected in, you know, different ways. And so that's another thing that we think is really important, to kind of try and support those people and to, you know, kind of direct them as best we can. You know, I think there is a few journalists looking into, you know, they're trying to kind of find numbers and just see if there is another kind of cluster. And because that's really important to us. And I think mentioning all the other mums as well that were in the story, because obviously they're not all in the drama, but they are at the heart of this as well. And, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing the drama is definitely full of, is heart.
It's just extraordinary. You are extraordinary.
Brilliant.
Did Susan feel like you did her karaoke justice, though? Have you
That's her favourite bit, she said.
Her favourite bit. And her fighting as well.
That and the punch-up.
Yeah, the punch-up. It's an extraordinary drama. It's gripping. The first one is so heartbreaking, and then watching the strength that you all have to fight and get that justice. Can't imagine what that day was like when you won the case as well. Thank you for coming in and sharing your story.
Thank
Jodie,
you.
it's amazing. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
For being here. Toxic Town is on Netflix. We can't recommend it enough.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.